And reading from Transcendental Diary, Sri Vrindavan Dham. A local devotee, Sri Vishwambar Dayal, popularly known as Bhagatji, arrived at 9 p.m. to prepare Srila Prabhupada's hot milk and hold light discussion on the temple management, Gurukula, and other matters. Srila Prabhupada drinks a glass of hot milk every evening before taking rest, sometimes supplemented with a savory like kachori, paratha, or fried chida. He gave the cooks clear instructions how to make each preparation. His milk had to be exactly the right temperature, very hot, so that it could be easily digested, but not so hot that it burns. One previous evening, he demonstrated to me how to bring boiling milk to the right temperature for drinking. Calling for another bowl, he poured the milk from his silver cup from a height of about 6 inches into a bowl, and then back again a few times to accelerate the milk, to acerate the milk, and to reduce the temperature. When it was just right, he drank it. The evening massage took more than a half an hour. Lately, the weather has been cold throughout the night until sunrise. Thus, Prabhupada's circulation in joints need more attention. I took rest about 11 o'clock. As we disciples slept, Prabhupada arose around 11:30 or midnight to begin his most important work of the day, the translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the writing of his transcendental purports. Harikesh is a light sleeper, and he often awakens as Prabhupada comes to the servant's room on his way to the darshan room. Rolling over in his sleeping bag, he offers his obeisances as Srila Prabhupada passes. Sitting at his desk, Prabhupada chanted japa for an hour or so in complete concentration on the holy name. He prayed to Krishna for the ability to serve him nicely and to present the eternal words of the Srimad Bhagavatam in a manner just suitable for the understanding of the entire world, conscious that his work will form the basis for law and order in the next 10,000 years. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 3, text number 25. Uttaya Panjali Prabha Ikshamano Dusha Vibhum Ashashru Pulakot Vedo Gira Kadaya Vina. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Then, getting up from the ground and seeing Lord Brahma before him, the head of the Daityas was overwhelmed by jubilation. With tears in his eyes, his whole body shivered, and he began praying in a humble mood, with folded hands and a faltering voice to satisfy Lord Brahma. Chakshurum militam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Chaitanya manobishtam stapitam yena vittara mayam bhakatatai vishwa. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharya Nirvishesha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Radha Shiva Hari Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. I'm going to read the next couple verses. There's no purport here, but just one observation on this verse. And here we see Hiranyakashipu, who is the king of the demons, so arrogant, so desirous of exploiting and enjoying this material world. Yet, by seeing Lord Brahma, who he accepts as his superior, he becomes submissive, humble, joyous, signs of ecstasy. So, the point is that the living entity in this world, no matter how powerful he may be, will always find someone or something, even though they want to be the best, even though they always will refer to something or someone else as greater. Even the greatest conquerors of the world in history, known history, we see they always have, they themselves have a guru, so to speak. They have someone who they look up to, someone who they worship. So this is a necessity of the jiva. They must have someone. Although sometimes they may have the false understanding that I can overcome, just as we discussed the other day, Sura, I can overcome this master, I can become greater. But still at some point, in order to get power, even the Mayavadis, it's a trick of the Lord. The Mayavadis are, of course, the trick of Shankaracharya also. They have to perform deity worship. And so, but they think, they don't really understand fully who the deity is, but they have to do it. And in this way, by that worship, they can even to achieve the Brahman, they have to do some worship. But to speak of going beyond Brahman, of course, most Mayavadis don't do that. Most of them nowadays don't even get to Brahman. And another point is that everything comes from Krishna. So Krishna is also, even though he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, on the level of rasa, he also has superiors. He has Yashodamai, Nanda Maharaj, and his beloved Srimati Radharani, who he also worships. So everything comes from Krishna. And therefore the idea of worshipping a superior also comes from Krishna. Therefore it must be there in the living entity, because it's there in the Supreme Personality of God. So we can see that in this particular verse. He was very blissful, he was very jubilant to see Lord Brahma, because he's feeling this ecstasy of being with someone who can actually empower us. We all want to be empowered, sometimes for the proper reason or motivation, and sometimes improper. But everyone in this material world, and even in the spiritual world, of course, in the spiritual world, they understand that everything is coming from Krishna, just like we just read in the Transcendental Diary that Srila Prabhupada gets up 11:30, 12, and he goes and he chants japa intensely, and then he prays to the Lord, please allow me. It's like when you read the different introductions to the commentaries of the acharyas, they always begin by saying this: may Krishna give me the ability to, sometimes you read it at the end, it says, I'm doing this for the pleasure of the Vaishnavas, which is of course their mentality. But they begin by saying, although I am fallen, lowly, and have no ability, somehow or another Krishna allows me to do this service, that I may do it for his pleasure, and that others will be able to engage in his service. There's always something like that. This is the humble mood of a Vaishnava. But even the non-Vaishnavas, they also do this. Of course, essentially, Hiranyakashipu is a Vaishnava, and therefore we'll see later on that all of his insults, just like in the case of Hiranyaksha, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains how Saraswati has cleverly disguised their glorification of the Lord. Just like in the case of Pondraka, when he insulted Krishna, or Shishupal also, his words because he's a devotee. But when someone's not a devotee, actually a demon, then Saraswati will not necessarily empower them to glorify the Lord. And then the Lord will just immediately chop off their head without any play around with them or allow them to glorify, although they seem to be insulted. So now we'll go to the next, which is the next verse couple, 2 verses, text 26 and 27. Shri Hiranyakashipu vacha kalpanye kalashishtena yondena tamasavitam abhivarna jagatidam swayam jyotir sarochisha atmana trivita chedham shichat yavati lampati Rajasattvatamo dhamne paraya mahate namaha. Translation purport. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord within this universe. At the end of each day of his life, the universe is fully covered with dense darkness by the influence of time. And then again, during the next day, that self-effulgent Lord, by his own effulgence, manifests, maintains, and destroys the entire cosmic manifestation through the material energy, which is invested with the 3 modes of material nature. He, Lord Brahma, is the shelter of those modes of nature, Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. We can remember from the 2nd canto of the Bhagavatam that Narada Muni, in praying to Lord Brahma, he says, it seems that you are referring to someone else. Is there a greater personality in the universe than you? So, we see that Hiranyakashipu's prayer here is, although it's directed to Lord Brahma, and some things are true, some things are actually attributes of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, he uses the word Raja Sattva Tamo Dhamne. You are the Lord of these 3 modes of nature. But actually, he's not the Lord of the 3 modes of nature. Although he is in charge of the mode of passion, he's basically situated in goodness. And of course, when he's a pure devotee, topmost pure devotee, like in the case of our Brahma, then he's situated in Vishuddha. But he, just like Arjuna, is also situated in Vishuddha Sattva. But he acts in the mode of passion according to the type of body and mentality that he's been given. This is like, this is how we're hardwired, according to our, in our case, according to our karma. In the case of Arjuna, according to the Lord's arrangement, that this so-called hardwiring, or the tendency that we have living in a particular body, is very difficult to overcome, even though it can be overcome in several places, especially in the 13th chapter of the 10th canto. There's one verse, I can't remember, verse number 48 or 50, where it speaks about all the different energies of the Lord offering prayers to him. Lord Brahma is witnessing this. And one of those energies is prakriti, or one's own nature. So Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, although it's very difficult to change one's nature, because nature is ultimately surrendered to the Lord, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one can actually change one's nature. So this is it's possible, but it's not very likely, and therefore Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita in the mood of not changing. Because even though Arjuna may have been able to, he may have been able to change. And some people may be able to. The majority of people cannot change that hardwired past karma tendency that is just built into this particular body and the psychology that goes along with a certain type of body. Just like the physical body has a lot to do with the psychology that goes along with that body. People who are very big and strong, they have a tendency to be domineering. And people who have a different type of body, they have a tendency to work very hard. People who have a certain type of brain, they have a tendency to be very intellectual. So this is something that's built into us and very, very difficult to change. But a pure Vaishnava, even though they don't change it, as Srila Prabhupada emphasized especially in his Varnashram talks and walks, both in Vrindavan and other places. He said that Vaishnava means that I will do the needful for Krishna. And of course this is categorized in Srila Prabhupada's purports as emergency work. A devotee, because there are so many necessities in preaching Krishna consciousness, sometimes a devotee has to do something that may not be exactly according to their nature. Sometimes someone may have to cook. They may not be an expert cook or so inclined to cook. Just like Srila Prabhupada we just read. He would tell the devotees how to make hot milk, how to make this, how to make parathas. Specific English. Prabhupada was an expert cook. Prabhupada was expert at everything. He embodied the 26 qualities of a Vaishnava. You could find them all in Srila Prabhupada. But still, there may have been other god brothers of his who were more expert in Sanskrit. There may have been someone else who was more expert in something else. That may be because of Srila Prabhupada's humility or the arrangement of the Lord, whatever it is. The point is that we have a certain nature, and it's difficult to change that nature, but we can engage it in Krishna's service. So Brahma, he has a certain nature, but he's still in charge of the mode of passion. He has to make sure that the mode of passion functions properly. Otherwise, things won't work properly. So, we see by this prayer that Hiranyakashipu conveniently sees Lord Brahma as the supreme deity, although his glorification mostly pertains to Lord Vishnu. But he could never attribute these things to Lord Vishnu. Although in his heart, he is glorifying Vishnu through Lord Brahma. And of course, as we read the other day, this is Yajan Yabidi Purvakam. This is doing the right thing in the wrong way, which is very common for the conditioned living soul. We're all doing the right thing. We're worshiping something or someone, but generally it's the wrong thing or the wrong person. And therefore, we become bewildered as Hiranyakashipu here in this verse. So Srila Prabhupada's purport. The words Abhivyanag Jagadidam refer to he who creates this cosmic manifestation. The original creator is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Janmadhyasya. Lord Brahma is the secondary creator. Actually, Lord Brahma is really, in one sense, not a creator, but more of an engineer. Actually, there are some secret societies in the world, and they worship the ones who actually had some connection with the Vedic science. They actually worship Brahma as the original Mason. Because the Masonic society is based on engineering and creating systems and things like that. That's why the Masons in the U.S., just like in the U.S., the first 6 presidents of the U.S. were all Masons. That's why they have that little symbol in the U.S. dollar bill, a pyramid with a little eye in it. That's one of the traditional symbols of the Masons. And so they're mystical. They have this mystical side where they worship certain aspects of metaphysics to empower themselves to be able to lead and to govern. So, but here, so Brahma is actually an engineer. Because if he were a creator, he would have immediately known how to create, but he didn't know how to create. He went up, he was on top of the lotus, and he looked around, he was bewildered, he looked over, he saw the whole pradhana, and he climbed down the stem of the lotus, and he couldn't figure anything out. He climbed back up, and then finally, by meditating on the Lord and through tapasya, he was, as it says here, Krishna is the original creator, and he does creation, manifestation, and destruction. And he's in charge of the 3 modes of nature. But Lord Brahma, he doesn't have all this function. But Teni Brahma, Hridaya, that the Lord enlightens Brahma from within the heart and gives him all knowledge. Also, although some of that knowledge also came from Krishna's flute. After first he was enlivened by Krishna with basic knowledge, and then by his tapasya, he was further enlightened by Krishna from his flute playing, where Saraswati actually and Gayatri initiated him in the knowledge of all creation. When Lord Brahma is empowered by Lord Krishna as the engineer, Srila Prabhupada uses that word, the engineer to create the phenomenal world, he becomes the supremely powerful feature within this universe. The total material energy is created by Krishna, and later, taking advantage of all that has necessarily been created, Lord Brahma engineers the entire phenomenal universe. At the end of Lord Brahma's day, everything up to Swargaloka is inundated with water. And the next morning, when there is darkness in the universe, Brahma again brings the phenomenal manifestation into existence. Therefore, he is described here as he who manifests this universe. So here we have a description of the night of Lord Brahma, that not the whole universe is inundated, but up to Swargaloka, and including the major part of Swargaloka, except for Jnanaloka, Mahaloka, and Tapaloka. A few planets that are just below Brahmaloka, they are not inundated at the time of Lord Brahma's night, because everyone is simply meditating. They're meditating, they're doing austerities and penances. They're so quiet, they're so pure. Many of them are destined, after this night, as we read the other day, that the associates of Lord Brahma, those who live on his planet, most of them will go to Vaikuntha after this lifetime. Therefore, there's no reason for them, for those places, in Tapaloka, Mahaloka, there's no reason for these places to be inundated. The inundation takes place so that the ignorant living entities can be put into suspension for some time, and then they're awakened again in the next mini creation, so to speak, at the beginning of Lord Brahman's next day. Brahma again brings this phenomenal manifestation into existence. Therefore, he is described here as he who manifests the universe. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining this term, Abhivyana Jagatidam. Tringunan Vinoti. Lord Brahma takes advantage of the three modes of material nature. Prakriti, material nature, is described here as Tri-Vritta, the source of the three modes. Srimadvacharya comments in this connection that Tri-Vritta means Prakritya. Thus Lord Krishna is the original creator and Lord Brahma is the original engineer. When Brahma is enlightened by Krishna to do the act of engineering or creating the material universe, putting everything into place, then Lord Brahma, he prays to the Lord. First of all, it says in the Bhagavatam, in the 9th chapter of the 2nd canto, that Srila Prabhupada translates it, although it doesn't use these exact words, that Krishna shook Brahma's hand. And so one may say, why did Srila Prabhupada say it like that? Did they really, shake hands? Well, it's not clear why Prabhupada did it, but Prabhupada does make the point that somehow or another Krishna embraced, or you see, he came close and he gave Lord Brahma the full assurance by touching him, by blessing him, by shaking his hand, whatever the means is. When I read that, I always thought that, well, Prabhupada uses that expression because it's the common way that people make a pact in the material world. And everything does come from Krishna, so maybe the handshake also comes from Krishna. She probably stated it that way in any case. But the point is that he gave him the assurance, this is what I want you to do. And Lord Brahma felt so enlivened by that, and so energized. And he began to praise the Lord. And he said, my dear Lord, you've given me such a big responsibility, such a task to perform. But I'm afraid of one thing. I'm afraid if I have all this power, then I may just misuse it and become proud, arrogant, and foolish. So my Lord, I pray to you that please, along with giving me this, give me the ability to remain humble and always remember that I'm doing this on your behalf. That's more or less what Lord Brahma said. And then, because whenever we're empowered to do something, there's always the danger that we think that this empowerment is coming from my intelligence. This empowerment is coming from something within me. We don't necessarily think, oh, this is coming from Krishna. So, this was Brahma's concern. I don't want to become puffed up and arrogant. Just like sometimes we become puffed up and we don't even have any qualification. And Lord Brahma, he definitely had some real qualification. And who are we? What is our great ability to do something? But still, even though we may not have such abilities, we become so puffed up, so proud, so arrogant, so belligerent sometimes, thinking that we're somehow or another some great personality. So this is the danger in the material world. And Krishna responded by saying, Jnanam Paramabhuyante, that this knowledge that I'm about to give you, which is the Chaturshloki, is Paramabhuya. It is the highest, most confidential knowledge. And as I mentioned yesterday, Lord Brahma's intelligence is so powerful that only in 4 verses he understood the whole content of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Just like Vedanta Sutra takes the Bhagavatam and condenses it into basically 4 sections, which each one having 4 sections. The actual Sanskrit, of the Vedanta, you could put it into a little booklet like this, which is really not that much. But of course, then all the acharyas had to comment on the Vedanta Sutra. Even our particular sampradaya, the Smarta Brahmins, they were challenging us, our line, that you don't have a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, therefore you're not authorized. And the devotees approached Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur at that time, because he was like the most prominent acharya. But at that point in his life, he was already a little bit older, and he had, he was pretty much absorbed in Rasa Shastra. He'd already finished his Bhagavatam commentary, and so he wasn't very inclined to do it. So he told them, I'm very old. And so he actually asked Baladev Vidyabhushan to do it. And Baladev, he felt that he was not capable of doing it, even though he got the instruction from his Shiksha Guru, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So he went to the Govinda deity, and he prayed to Govinda that please, I've gotten this, I have this commitment, I've gotten this instruction that I should do this. Please empower me, please tell me how to do it. And Govinda appeared in his dream and said, don't worry, I will guide you. And therefore he calls it the Govinda Vasya, that the illumination on the Vedanta given by Govindaji. And such a beautiful rendition compared to Ramanuja also did it, Madhvacharya, he did it. He had his commentary on Vedanta. Shankaracharya, his famous commentary, which is the basis of modern Indian philosophy. And Baladev Vidyabhushan, he has his commentary. So Vallabhacharya also has his commentary, which is not as big as the other one. So these the Vedanta, but it's very condensed. So this Chaturshloki, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, if you study his writings, they're based basically on 2 things, the Shikshastikam and Chaturshloki. Practically every one of his writings is an expansion, or an expansion from that expansion of these 2 works, which he considers to be Krishna giving the essence of the Bhagavatam and Chaturshloki, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving the essence of all teachings in the form of Shikshastikam. And therefore he expanded practically everything he wrote from those 2 works, one coming from Krishna, one coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Krishna tells Brahma, Paramabhuyante, that this is very, very intimate. Sadvijnanam samamritam. Tatvijnanam samamritam. That, and it must be understood in the proper way. It must be understood. It cannot be, it cannot be speculated on. It has to be understood in the proper way. Therefore, can't remember the second part of the verse, but anyway, then he says, basically the rest of the verse says that that therefore I'm giving you this knowledge by which you can perform this task. Take it. Grihana Garidam. Take it very carefully and do it exactly as I instruct you. So this was Krishna's instruction of how to enact, or how the parampara becomes manifest. Krishna says very carefully that you must do this as I have instructed you. You don't do it by your own whim. You don't do it by some other means. You have to take this instruction. Someone was asking me yesterday, just before the program, can we simply understand different Vedic knowledge with our intellect and perform it within the mind? Of course, this is a subject matter of Nanda Gopakumar when he came to Tapaloka, and he met the sage Pipalaya. And Pipalaya told him that he should just meditate. Why is he going around looking for Krishna? Why is he going around looking for a worship of the Lord? Because whatever you see with your eyes, it will ultimately be processed with the mind. So why take that trouble of looking around and with the external senses, which can also be attracted to something else, take the risk that one may become attracted to some other aspect of the whole creation. He was basically telling you, sit down here with us and meditate. Somehow or another you come to this planet. And it's not easy. Most of us have not been, well, at least we don't remember. No. We haven't been to Tapaloka. And if you were, you probably wouldn't be here in Trinidad. So maybe on the downside, and coming down we were there. But definitely we weren't there recently. So he says that you should just meditate. Because anything we do, it's all processed by the mind. Therefore the mind has to be purified. Of course, this is also our philosophy. But this was the end, the be-all and end-all, according to Pipalaya. And it was not satisfactory to Nanda Gopakumar, because he's a devotee. Idam te vakur, not the Gopalavan. A devotee wants to see the Lord. Because that seeing the Lord is described as something very, very special. Sri Sanatana Goswami elaborates on this, that to see the Lord's form, either in the deity form. Otherwise, we all have Bhagavad Gita, we have Srimad Bhagavatam, we could sit down and meditate. But even if you read the Bhagavatam every day, you're still enlivened to come and see the deity, because there's a special empowerment. And because the deity, or what to speak of the Lord manifesting himself personally before the eyes of the devotee, is so powerful that it is beyond the capability of the mind. This is Sanatana Goswami's point, that the mind can only go so far. But the vision, if the Lord gives you this transcendental vision, as it said in the Sutta Upanishad, that Mami Vaisha Vinute Tena Labhyas, that even though one may try by so many different ways, Nayamatma Pravachanena Labhyo, one may try by different types of lectures to understand the Supreme, Namedaya Nabahana Shuktena, or one may try by one's own intelligence, or by studying many scriptures to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But this is impossible. One can never accomplish this. But Tashaisha Atma Bhavinute Tanum Swami. But when the Lord sees the devotion of his devotee, And of course, we spoke about this in Bhagavad Gita yesterday. Not only can you know him, not only can you see him, but you can enter into the mystery of his existence. Otherwise, Krishna reveals himself in such a way to the devotee, according to that devotee's level of devotion, and that vision is beyond the capability of the mind. Even though one is apparently seeing the Lord with one's eyes, the real eye, that eye of the heart has opened up through the eyes of the body. And through those eyes, one can actually see the Lord in such a special way that one becomes enlivened in such a way that would be impossible for that to be created with the mind, unless the mind itself, just like in the case of 6 Goswamis, of great devotees on that level, then their mind can also accomplish this particular vision. Their mind can do it, their eyes can do it, their body can do it by entering into ecstasy, their ears can do it, just like Pundarik Vidyanidhi, when Mukunda, who wanted to show to Gadadhar the greatness of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, which was hidden. As soon as he spoke a verse about Krishna entering into the forest with the peacock feather and his flute, then Pundarik Vidyanidhi went into such an ecstasy that he knocked everything over. His servants could not hold him down. And for 8 hours, he was in constant ecstasy. And Gadadhar was so amazed that he said, "Let me become your servant for the rest of my life." Such an amazing devotee. So, point is that we, if we want to be empowered to actually see Krishna, even though we see him right here, but to actually see him with the heart, not just see him with our eyes, very beautiful, and make some material calculation. If we can see him with the heart, then just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it would be very difficult for us to pull ourselves away from him. Lord Chaitanya, to be able to leave Lord Jagannath Darshan, he had to make a great effort. Sometimes we have to make a great effort to come to the temple. And it's just the opposite. A devotee has to make a great effort to leave the temple, because they're so absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the deity and the chanting of the holy name, they don't want to leave. And sometimes we have to force ourselves just to come. And usually it's based on some calculation that, well, if I go, then I'll get this or that, I'm supposed to do that. But it's not always a spontaneous movement of the heart that we come. And Lord Chaitanya, even when Jagannath was during the 2-week period where he is not visible, he immediately went to Alalana. He immediately went to the temple of the Lord and wanted to see that beautiful deity, four-armed Krishna form. And he was absorbed in so much ecstasy that his body melted the stones. You can still go there and see that. Although sometimes when you go to that temple, you definitely get ambushed by at least 15 or 20 different pandits. They come out of the woodwork. One time we tried to sneak up on that temple. We drove up and we hid the car, and we actually went a little bit into the bushes and went out over the ocean beach, and then came in from the backside thinking that maybe we can get in. But as soon as we came out of the brush, there were all the pandits right there waiting for him. But anyway, just the way it is. I always see these pandits as to test us, how much do we want to go to that holy place. Because anywhere you go in Vrindavan, or even Jagannath Puri, Mayapur is not quite as bad, anywhere you go in Vrindavan and Jagannath Puri, there'll always be like a host of pandas waiting to make sure that you understand what they understand and you give a donation. So, but the point is that such a special opportunity we have to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Chaitanya illustrated that very special opportunity that we have. So we should try to understand what we have here on this altar. That the Lord has come in His Archa Vigraha to give us that opportunity to become fully absorbed in Him. That's what we have here. It's not like the altar, it's not like something I do. We have the tendency to reduce everything down to a mechanical process. But it's actually the opportunity to enter into pure devotional service and spontaneous devotional service. And therefore, we have Shri Radha Hare Krishna, Shri Radha Gopinath. That they are inviting us to enter onto the platform of Raganuga, or spontaneous devotional service. So anyway, these are some points on these verses. I'll stop here. Any comments, any questions? Yes.
It is said that Lord Brahma is in charge of the mode of passion, and we heard that Lord Shiva is in charge of the mode of ignorance, Lord Vishnu is in charge of the mode of the goodness. So where does Durga fit in there? Because she is not that goose, Daivi Shilgunamai Mamamaya, referring to Durga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's like a sub-director. Otherwise, the three principal deities, they are the ultimate director of that particular mode of nature, meaning that they manifest it in its original, like the root. But then, even Lord Brahma, he has a certain jurisdiction over it, even before Durga. And Lord Shiva also, not that Shiva is only in ignorance. He's not in ignorance, he's in charge of ignorance. Because he's in charge of it, sometimes he enters into it, being in charge of it. But Durga Devi, she's like the sub-director that makes sure that these modes of nature takes charge of them before all the living entities and manages them according to the karma of the living entity. And then below Durga, there's other sub-directors or lesser demigods that will also help her to manage the modes of nature. And of course, Lord Shiva, being her husband, he's actually the director of the modes of nature within the material universe. So you know how that works, that Brahma, he's not like, because he's in charge of the mode of passion, that every time there's passion, he has to be there. Just like Krishna, he's in charge of everything, but he doesn't have to personally be there. There's a whole structure that allows the functioning of the universe to go on without the Lord's intervention. Although the Lord's presence is so important that he enters into every atom in the form of Paramatma. And he permeates the whole material existence in the form of Brahman. The technicalities of that may be beyond our ability to understand. If we could understand it, we probably wouldn't be here in material energy.
I heard you mention Goddess Saraswati. She's in charge of the learning. Does it make sense that if you're going to read the Bhagavatam or the Vedas, you could say, "Oh, Mother Saraswati, please give me your benediction so that I may be able to understand what
Srila Prabhupada's blessing in the form of the, first of all, manifesting this Krishna consciousness movement with his Bhaktivedanta purports, but certainly he's enlightening us, and then we have the spiritual master, and we have the Vaishnavas, who may not always be present in our everyday, every moment of our lives, but they're present if we're looking for it. And in Kali Yuga, Krishna's made the arrangement that there may not be so many sadhus in every place, but you can find sadhus on the internet. Instead of Facebook, you can find sadhus, or something else that someone may look for on the internet. So there's always this guidance, or this enlivening principle is always available if we want it. Krishna has made that arrangement. And if we don't want it, we can find something else on the internet, or even when we come to the temple. Some people do that. They come to the temple, they could be chanting before the deity, but they'll be talking outside, somebody else, complaining about this, complaining about that. So everything depends on our consciousness. What do I want when I come to the temple, or when I do anything? And those people who want that, it doesn't matter where they are, they'll always find a problem. And those who actually imbibe spiritual principles, they'll always find a solution. Some people live in a world of problems, and other people live in a world of solutions. It depends on what we want. Do I want to solve the problems of material existence? Or out of envy, jealousy, and arrogance, do I simply want to be seen by my intelligence, or by my criticism, or whatever, to be seen as the one who knows, the one who figured it all out?
What should be my attitude as early morning, devotees chant that the fifth Satakra to revise and mention it? What should be my attitude? Because I'm nowhere there, but I have to take my life. So what should be my attitude in repeating the fifth Satakra prayer early morning?
Our attitude should be Trinidad Sunichana Parodi Vasishana Manina Manidina Kitaniya Sadhari. That's the attitude. And then the next extension of that attitude, Na Nadanam Najanam Sundari Kavita. I don't want wealth, the opposite sex, followers, or fruitive activity. If we just work on that attitude, then every other attitude necessary for executing devotional service will become manifest.
Because before joining this college, I had 3 jobs: restaurant, music, and insurance and skills. Restaurant. So when I gave it up all and stopped playing music, the president see that the action, but still all the years, it's still pulling me. Not that I want to, but
Prabhupada,
honestly, it's pulling me all the way.
Prabhupada actually condensed what attitude we should have in his question, his last question to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he said that, how can I serve? If we have that attitude, how can I serve? In that humble state of mind, we just want to see, how can I serve every individual? How can I serve the temple? How can I serve the Sankirtan movement? Then we'll have great success in spiritual life. So, I want to thank everyone for your kind attention and for your association. And I hope that I can come back soon. Hopefully in a few months I can be back, if Krishna allows me. And we can again associate. Thank you very much. All glory to Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga, Shri Prabhupada, Shri Radha Gopinath, Shri Gaurnitai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava.
Holiness Guru Prasad Swami Maharaj ki.
Council,